Alright everybody, so we're going to look at how you can set up proportions based on similar figures. And just a reminder, similar figures are figures that are the same shape but not necessarily the same size. You see we've got some examples of that down here on this paper. And towards the second part of this worksheet, we got a couple mixture word problems down here. So different strategies that we'll use to solve those down there will be popping up. Some of the stuff you've already seen before, some of the stuff might be a little bit new to you. But we'll handle those here in a little bit. First, let's focus on the similar figures. So look at question number 1. Now, the method I'm going to show you is setting up a proportion, and as long as the figures are facing the same way and look exactly the same, it's a very, very simple setup. Now, I like to set up the proportion based off of the first fraction I write being the fraction that has the two numbers in it, and then the second fraction I write for the proportion will be the fraction that has a variable in it. I think it's the easier way to solve these proportions here. So, when I set up this first fraction, I'm going to use this smaller triangle here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do left side over bottom, or this leg over this leg. So I'm going to have 4 over 3. So if I did left side over bottom, for this triangle here, I got to do left side over bottom. So I'm going to have 12 over n. Now that's not the only setup you could have had. For example, if somebody would have done bottom over left side, they would have had 3/4, and here they would have bottom over left side, so n over 12. That works as well. And so either way you set this up, and you could have actually put the fraction with the variable in the front as well. It doesn't matter. I just like to have the variable on the right side when it comes to proportions. But all these will give you the same answer when you set it up. Okay, so I'm going to come back down to the original proportion that I wrote. Now, different ways to solve this. I like to use the shortcut. If you use a shortcut, you say, how do I get from 4 to 12? You could do times 3. So if you do it on top of the proportion, you have to do it on the bottom. In other words, you do it to the numerators, you have to do it to the denominators. So once you do that, you see you have a value for n that's going to be 9 for our answer here. Now, the other way, just to come back and show you, I'm going to use a shortcut when I solve these problems here, but just to kind of go back and show you the cross multiplication way that works all the time. What you could have done is said 4 times n is 4n. And then 3 times 12 is going to be 36. And so then go back in and use your equation steps. Opposite of multiplying by 4 will be dividing by 4. Do it to one side of the equation, you have to do it to the other side. So 36 divided by 4 still gives you 9. So we talked about using that method as well. Remember, that way works for all proportions, but these problems up here are going to have a lot of shortcuts. So from here, I'm just going to use these shortcuts when it comes to setting up and solving these proportions. Let's check out number 2. I'm going to come over here to this rectangle first and set it up because it's the one that has the two numbers. So I'm going to use the variable for my second piece of proportion. So here I'm going to do left side over bottom again. So I'm going to do 12 over 8. If I did left side over bottom, I have to do left side over bottom again on the smaller rectangle. So I'll do the n over the 2. So I'm going to come back in and use my shortcut here and think about how can I get from 8 to 2. I can divide by 4, do the same thing for the numerator, and you see that our final answer here is going to be 3. When it comes to this one over here, this one actually is a little bit easier than some of the other ones we've already done. So we'll set this one up over here, and we have 20 over 20. And I'll show you why it's a little bit easier here in a second. I'm going to solve this proportion first, and then we'll talk about the way you could have kind of seen the answer off the bat. And here you do, so I did top over left side, so I'll do top over left side, so 4 over n. You can divide by 5 to get from 20 to 4. So do the same thing on the bottom here, and you see n equals 4. Now, the reason this one's a little bit easier because if you have the same number on the top and the left for this triangle, you're going to have the same number on the top and the left for this triangle. So right off the bat, you could have known this one was 4 if you caught that. All right, we'll have you try these 3 problems here in a minute, but before we get you into these 3 problems, I'm going to come out here and talk about a couple of these word problems here that are scale word problems. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Alright, so this one says, Tanya has a newspaper photo that she wants to enlarge to include in her report. The photo is 3 inches by 4 inches. She wants to enlarge it so it's 8 inches long. So how wide should she make the photo? So it originally tells us that the width is 3 and 4 is going to be the length. I'm going to draw a picture to help us see this. This one does not provide a picture. A lot of times when you put a picture down, it helps you see it a little bit easier. So if it's 3 inches by 4 inches, put a 3 for my width here and a 4 for my length. The second piece I want to put here is I'm going to draw me a new picture. And y'all, I'm not drawing these to scale. So obviously this one will be bigger than this rectangle here, but as long as we get the original set up, I think we can kind of know where to put the numbers in and solve. So it says she wants to enlarge it so that it is 8 inches long. So I'm going to put the 8 up here for length. And it says how wide should she make the photo? So I'll just choose n again for my variable. You can choose whatever letter you want. So if I had the picture already set up, it might be a little bit easier to solve this problem, kind of like it was for these first couple that we tried. But because of the word problem, and you don't have to draw a picture, but I think it helps to draw a picture. So since you had a word problem without a picture, draw the picture first. And now we can set up our proportions. So I'm going to come over here and set up our proportions. So I'm going to do width over length. So I'm going to do 3 over 4. I'm going to do width over length, this bottom one, so n over 8. Now I can use my shortcut here to get from 4 to 8. I could do times 2. Same thing on top. I could do 3 times 2. And when I did that, I see my width is going to be 6 here. So that's the way you can solve this one down here, talking about some scales. So obviously you have a smaller photo, you want to enlarge it using the same dimensions or the same fraction that you had down here. So if it's 3/4 here, you have another fraction that you set up there that will be equivalent to 3/4. Now obviously we put the 6 back in here and reduce 6/8 down, we would still get 3/4. That problem is very similar to number 9 down here, where you have to go back in and draw your pictures. Now I don't want to do that one with you here. I want to let you try it on your own since we did one very similar to it. And just kind of give you a heads up, when you try these couple problems here we haven't looked at yet, this one over here, number 8, is kind of, it says mixed applications. This one's kind of to itself. Doesn't really have necessarily anything to do with proportions, or at least I don't solve it with proportions. So it's more like percent of a number. So if you have some background in turning percents to decimals, think about how you can go back in and solve this problem here. And down here at the bottom, it originally wants you to do something else. I want you to focus on unit rate. So it's 15 cents for each pound. So how much would you make if you collected 240 pounds? So you can set that one up like a proportion, or there's different ways you can go about solving that one if you don't use a proportion. So I want you to take a little bit of time. I'll move this back down a little bit. And so we did 1, 2, and 3, and then number 7. So I want you to try 4, 5, and 6. They're very similar to what we have for 1, 2, and 3. And then come down here and try 8, 9, and 10. And see how you do on that. So just pause the video and take a second and try these problems. And then once we give you a little bit of time to try it, we'll come back in and see how you did. Alright, so I'm going to pop up the answer key here. Alright, so you see for number 4, I use the proportion 2/3 equals 12 over n. Remember, that's not the only proportion you could have had. And there's different ways to solve it once you get the proportion. I did the shortcut and got 18. Over here for number 5, I did 8 over 6 equals n over 3. Once I solved it, I got an answer of 4. And then for number 6, I did 15 over 18 equals n over 6 and got an answer of 5. For number 8, to turn a percent to a decimal, we just move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. That's where I got that 2500 from, which is 0.25. If you multiply it by 64, you see 16 was going to be your answer for that one. Down here on number 9, you see my pictures. So I use these 2 pictures down here to kind of help me set up my proportion. And once I got my picture set up, I did 30 over 20 equals n over 2. And once I solved that with my shortcuts, I got the answer of 3. And then finally for number 10, different ways. So if you know it's 15 cents for 1 pound, how much would you make if you collected 240 pounds? You can just multiply 15 cents times 240 and get 36 for your answer. Or you could also use this proportion here to solve it. Either way, you end up getting 36 for your answer. So I'm going to pull this down again, just so you can pause it and check over your answers again without me talking. And so go ahead and pause this, check over your answers. Alright, so I hope this clarified a little bit when it comes to proportion and similar figures and a little bit of scale drawing stuff down here. Alright, talk to y'all later.